Speaking at a public function in June last, Prime Minister Holness engaged in political doublespeak as he sought to defend his now stained environmental record. Listen to him. I transcribed his words myself from the audio. "We get criticized and beaten up unfairly," the Prime Minister said, "because we have taken the approach that on the one hand, we have to address our poverty issue, and on the other hand, we have to preserve our environment as a legacy for generations to come. But the conversation that is had sometimes is as if we must just preserve the legacy and don't address poverty. And nothing can go like that. Because if you don't address poverty, it will destroy the legacy." End of quote. Come now, Honorable Andrew, you know and we know that it's not one or the other, environmental conservation or poverty alleviation. Sustainable development means economic growth without damaging the environment. Sustainable development means both environmental conservation and poverty alleviation at the same time. Degrading natural ecosystems, whether in the seas, the wetlands, or in the mountains, will impoverish fisherfolk and farmers. That is where we are now. Overfishing, caused by decades of government mismanagement of that sector, has led to reduced catches and reduced incomes for coastal dwellers, and damaged coral reefs due to improper fishing practices. We are ranked as having the most overfished waters in the region, which has caused reduced catches and incomes for fisherfolk, fish vendors, fish scalers, fish pot makers, fish net vendors, boat repairers, engine repairers, and all those who form part of the artisanal fisheries sector. Failure to conserve the environment causes poverty. There will be no prosperity without environmental conservation. Deforestation caused by decades of government mismanagement has caused extensive soil erosion. Look at satellite images of Jamaica and the plume of silt flowing to the west in the sea current. That is topsoil being washed away because there are not enough trees to hold the soil on the hillsides. This reduces the fertility of the land and reduces crop yields on the hillsides. Reduces crop incomes for farmers and their families. Deforestation during the 20th century has caused more than 100 rivers to dry up in Jamaica, stressing farmers and all users of water. At one time, Jamaica had the highest rate of deforestation in the world. We don't have enough forests left now to sustain that high ranking. Failure to conserve the environment causes poverty. There will be no prosperity without environmental conservation. Yes, we know that poor, hungry people may pillage natural ecosystems in order to eat. But we also know that wealthy people with tractors do much more damage to the natural environment than poor people with machetes. Mr. Prime Minister, don't blame poor people for destroying the legacy of the natural environment handed down to us by our forefathers. Shame on you. Puerto Bueno Mountain in St. Anne would not have been destroyed by poor people. The cockpit country outside the protected area is not now being destroyed by poor people. It is big mining companies with heavy earth-moving equipment that is destroying our natural forests and the wildlife they support in the name of big profits. The truth is that your government and the several governments before you of all colors Your government and the others have neither alleviated poverty nor conserved the environment. Jamaican governments have pursued economic growth at the expense of the environment, have pursued unsustainable development. The little increase per capita GDP we have achieved has been bought at a heavy cost. Dredged coral reefs, chopped down forests, and dug down mountains. Your shameful and unfounded accusation that the conservation that is had sometimes is as if we must just preserve the legacy and don't address poverty. This unfounded accusation is unworthy of you. Who is having this conversation? Prime Minister? In whose unsavory company have you been? We environmentalists have never advocated protecting the environment and no economic activity. We environmentalists want serious economic growth along with environmental conservation, and we are getting neither. We want sustainable development, which you promised in your manifestos before the last few general elections. Keep your promises. In his speech last June, Prime Minister Holness continued in the same vein, and I quote, "So when you hear the conversations about environmental management, I implore all well-thinking citizens, don't just listen to one side of the conversation. Pay attention to the full picture. You have to eat, and we have to protect the environment. The government is making sure that you can pursue your livelihood and still have the environment that you can enjoy and leave as a legacy for your children." The Prime Minister said, "It's a balance in sustainability. That is what we are doing," the Prime Minister said. And this is the political doublespeak. When it comes to mining, the government is making sure that after the bauxite companies make their profit, there will be no healthy environment left as a legacy for our children and grandchildren. That is the full picture. This is called ecocide. Ecocide may be defined as acts committed with the knowledge that there is the likelihood of severe, widespread, long-term damage to the environment being caused by those acts. I encourage my listeners to hear both sides. The government wants economic growth at any cost, and they are prepared to sacrifice the natural environment to get it. If Prime Minister Holness wants to deserve a reputation for sound environmental stewardship, he should immediately put an end to the ecocide of our natural heritage by taking steps to shut down the mining industry. The few dollars Jamaica earns are not worth the degradation, not worth the rural poverty, not worth the dislocation which results. Our Holy Father Francis continues to encourage us to live up to our Christian duty to conserve the natural environment, which is our common home. The environmental sin of ecocide is just as deadly to our souls as murder. As we wait with joyful hope during this Advent season and in this age for Jesus to come again, let us live our Christian lives as defenders of God's creation. It is the right thing to do.